It feels like you hear about self-care all the time these days. It feels like it's a new thing, but self-care has been around for a long time. I was really thrilled to meet with and to interview Jacquie Compton, who is a therapist who specializes in restorative acts of self-care. She shares ideas and concepts that we can apply to our lives to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and we have the capacity to manage all the various stresses and responsibilities that comes with regular daily life. So I hope you enjoy the interview. Okay, so welcome to my lemonade stand. And today I'm very excited to be speaking to Jacquie Compton. So Jacquie is a registered art therapist and a psychotherapist. She's an art and somatic therapist, a teacher, an advocate, an artist, a poet, and an author. So, and Jacquie, last year you published your first book. This is your first book of poetry here.
Yeah, it's my first
Which
book of
is
poetry.
called A Body of Wisdom, which is lovely because like I told you, from the time I even got to the very first poem, it just spoke to me. So I really do love your poetry. And what I wanted to do today, as you know, is really talk about self-care, because one thing that you'll find when you check out Jacquie's website is that she focuses on restorative acts of self-care. And I think self-care is such a big theme right now, especially a lot of people that I work with. A lot of the themes that come up is about people feeling overwhelmed, people feeling stressed. How do I handle everything? And really, it comes down to sometimes slowing down and taking time for those things that restore us. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about self-care today. So welcome to the talk today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to lean in.
So I wanted to start by just asking you in general, like how would you describe what self-care is?
Ooh, I'm really in the place right now of redefining that. And I think self-care is even more than what we think it is, that it is an action that is done in relationship with ourselves and the world and to the people around us. That there's like a reciprocity in this action of self-care. Yeah.
And in saying that, I'm just pulling off of what you were just saying, it sounds as well, because a lot of times when we do get overwhelmed and we're busy and we're stressed or whatever, we tend to kind of be in our heads about all the things we have to do when we're running around. But what you just described to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it is about connection, right? So whether it's about nature or other people, it's about being in connection, right?
Yeah, being in connection and being curious about how we care for ourselves and how we care for, like, let's say, the earth and the world around us and the people around us. How that has like an interactive quality that then, for me, it offers support of like an experience of collective care. Because then imagine if everyone is caring for themselves and others, then we're going to have a different relationship in accessing how we tend to ourselves. Because we're often like taught, like what you just named, like there's so much I have to do. I'm so busy. I'm so burnt out, that the feeling of doing something more, like this self-care task, feels just even more inaccessible and feels like more work. Because like that is that experience where we're thinking about what that action of self-care looks like that can take so much energy.
Yeah.
Versus maybe feeling the experience of it.
Right, totally. And you hit the nail on the head when I was thinking about people seeing it truly as another thing I have to do. Oh, well, now they talk about this self-care thing that I have to do as well as everything else, and not recognizing that those are the things that actually give us the capacity to be able to have the energy and the mental awareness and all that stuff to do the things. Because, a lot of people, the reality is a lot of people's lives are busy. And what I also find interesting is that self-care, although right now it's kind of like a buzzword, it seems like it's something new, but it's not. Like, it's really, essentially, it is really like just taking care of yourself. And if you think about it, when we were little kids, it was like, oh, well, make sure that you take a nap, because you took a nap to make sure that you didn't get tired and cranky and all that other stuff.
Totally.
Make sure that you eat your lunch and whatever, to make sure, like, there are all these things that we naturally were just always taken care of by others and told that we need to do these. And for some reason now, as grownups, and it's now on to us for us to take care of ourselves And it's almost like, we have to read research or something to
To figure
convince
it out.
ourselves that we need to do this stuff. And it's so
Yeah.
natural. And one I just want to use one example that I always do, and it has to do with my cell phone. So, like most people, my whole life is on my cell phone, all my
Mm-hmm.
contacts, everything, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids always joke with me, I never let my phone get below about 60. As soon as it starts going around 60, I'm like scrambling. Okay, where is a charger? I need to charge my phone
Yeah,
because
you're caring for your phone.
sorry?
You're caring for your phone.
Yes, I'm caring for my phone because, oh my gosh, you can't run out because I need
Yes.
to do so many things. And I was
Yeah.
just wondering, could you imagine if we did that? As soon as we started feeling like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit stressed. I'm feeling a little bit,
Yeah.
my mind is racing. You know what? Maybe I just need a little break to do something to get myself back up from maybe I'm
Yeah.
at 60% to get myself back up to 80 or 90%. But we don't think of
Yeah.
it that way.
No, and it's so beautiful the way you named that, because that in itself is a restorative act, like just that metaphor of charging that cell phone. Restorative acts, like a self-care, actually really do give that experience of restoring ourselves. Like, and really, if you think about it in body terms, like you are resetting your nervous system. That's possible in any moment, that we can actually do that. That's how cool our bodies are, that if we give it if we stay with it long enough, and it's often not that much than what we think that self-care action is going to be, there can be this reset.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we can do the big ones, like, like, okay, let me do that yoga class that I need to drive to, and that's going to take this time. Let me book that time in. Totally. That yoga can totally be an act of self-care, but that's not like the most accessible for all of us. And just thinking about how to plan that act for ourselves can create such distance,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like something that we're going to get access to instantly. And then we start feeling even more like maybe stressed about it, because it's like, how am I going to navigate and plan this in my schedule with all the things I have to do, that all of a sudden we don't do that thing.
Is there going to be traffic? Am I going like all of that? But
And
this
then,
is perfect
yeah,
because
yeah,
I know that what we had talked about is talking about those bite size
yeah,
activities
bites.
of self-care. Like, so you're at your desk
Yeah,
and maybe you just get you get stressful news about, something went wrong and now you have to fix it. Maybe you're sitting in a meeting and, it's getting a little bit contentious and you're starting to feel a little bit stressed. You
yeah,
can't then say, okay, sorry, I'm going to go to my yoga class on the other side of town and I'm going to be right back.
yeah,
But I know that you have some brilliant ideas in terms of just little mini things that we have access to at any moment of the day to be able
yeah,
to just get that little recharge. So I wanted to, if you could share like some of those ideas that you have and that you share with
yeah,
your clients.
yeah. So the coolest thing that I'm just so in love with is the tool of our body. So our bodies hold our memories. And so, yeah, that means that they can also hold the experiences of stress and anxiety, overwhelm. But that's not all that's in our memory bank in our bodies. There's also the wisdom and intelligence of resources that support us in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that the memory of those things, like the memory of that yoga class, or the memory of that experience of being by the ocean, lives in your body, which means all we really need to nourish and cultivate is accessing those experiences in our bodies. That is an act of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we sense into those experiences, like Dion, like what's like just in nature, like what's like, oh yeah, like this is it for me. Like what are those like places in nature or experiences? Like, is it being like in the sun, or being like on a beach? Like what? Yeah.
So, well, there are lots, but if I want to talk about like the bite-sized one, to be honest with you, it's just flowers,
The
like
flowers. Okay, gorgeous. Yeah,
hydrangeas,
flowers.
like hydrangeas.
Yeah. So as you think about flowers, like what happens for you?
It's just
Like what
calming.
emotions come up? It's calming.
And
So
also,
very,
you're
very
looking at the
small.
beauty, like, back to when you talked about connection. So now I'm not about
Yeah.
looking at the beauty, like the color, the leaves, the, oh, does it need a
Yeah.
little bit more water? Like, you know what I mean? It just takes you into a different space.
Yeah. And there's that care already, huh? Like, so there's a connection, care, and calm
Hmm.
as you think about these flowers.
Hmm.
So as you sense that, like, how do you imagine like calm showing up in your body? Like, how do you know that it's calming?
Right. Well, I guess it would be my breathing, because you're
It would
breathing
be your breathing. Yeah.
calmer. Like if your shoulders are tense, like you kind of just, your body
Yeah.
kind of just
Yeah.
chill out a bit. Maybe
Yeah.
sit
And even
back.
your posture changes. Like you start sitting back. So now
Right.
here is this little bite-sized experience starting to show up. But
Hmm.
to access that is like, okay, the flower, you can have the flower on your desk too, but you
Hmm.
also just have the memory of it. And already you're like, oh, okay, my breath.
Hmm. But also,
I'm more relaxed.
couldn't you also, even if you didn't have the flower, although it's fairly accessible to have a flower on your desk, but you were
Sure.
also talking about like a vacation, like if you have your favorite spot on the beach, whatever, even having a picture of that
Even
on
having a
at your
picture of that
desk.
on your phone, even like anything like that.
Yes,
So
that's
just
true.
like as we're speaking about the flower, like you're already in the memory and experience in your body.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, this is calm.
Hmm.
And so a bite-sized action of self-care might just be like, closing your eyes, thinking of that flower, or just even as you're in that meeting, thinking of that flower, and then sitting back in that chair.
Hmm.
Like, ooh, feeling a little overwhelmed right now. Let me just sit back in the chair.
Hmm. And I know you
Let me
also
just take
talk
a
about,
breath.
that's what I was going to say. You also talk about breathing because,
Yeah.
sometimes, and this isn't even anything that anybody could even notice that you're doing this, right?
Yeah. No
And
one's,
you
yeah,
can
you breathing.
take some deep breaths and kind of,
Yeah. And sit back.
yes.
Yeah. And that, so you're accessing the experience of calm. Now you're doing a restorative act.
Hmm.
And the way that you can nourish it is also just like inviting that relationship with that flower, whether it's like there with you, but it's also there with you.
Hmm.
There's this
Hmm.
experience of connection. And so now you can meet that by connecting to that breath. And
Right.
so it's very different than maybe doing, like setting time up to do a breathing meditation. That's cool too, for sure.
Hmm.
But what can happen with that experience is that it becomes mechanical. It's like, let me think about breathing. I'm so stressed right now. Let me do that thing. Let me do this breathing app. Okay, this
Hmm.
isn't working. Because often we're really trying to multitask and do so many things, and we're in that mechanical idea of it
Hmm.
that it doesn't, we don't access it. But if you think about that flower, the breath is going to be a little bit easier.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you're connecting to calm. And then it's like, oh, I have this like hit that's my body where like now I'm in this meeting and then, oh yeah, let me sit back. And so
Hmm.
that's the practice. And the more you practice it, the more your relationship to self care feels more accessible. That
Right.
then helps you to go to that yoga studio because it's not so stressful
Hmm.
to figure out
Hmm.
because you're planning it from maybe a place of calm
Hmm.
versus like desperation, right? Where we're like, I don't know, I'm at my tipping point now,
Right.
right?
Because that's what I was going to talk to you about in terms of kind of physically what happens to us. So again, we talked about the calming because,
Yes,
again,
yes,
back to the feeling that, okay, we're so stressed, we're so overwhelmed, we actually don't even have time to do self-care. But
yeah,
it's that same self-care. And you just talked about it when you were talking about planning now to go to that yoga studio. By calming down, for me, it opens up my brain. And now all of a sudden, like the challenge that I'm facing that might be stressing me out, I can look at it a little bit differently and be like, oh, hey,
yeah,
actually, you know what? I should probably talk to Jacquie about that because I think Jacquie had a similar situation. What? But you need to be able to take that step back and to chill
that's
out and
right.
to turn down the
That's
volume a
right.
bit to be able to give yourself a little bit of perspective. So in a way, I know you probably heard of the what do you call it? The phrase "less haste, more speed." Like the
Yeah.
hastiness is the running around,
Oh, totally.
but when you're able to
Yeah.
stop up and pause for a minute, then you actually come up with some ideas that are going to get you there faster. But you had to
Yeah.
take that breath and step away and kind of get that perspective.
Yes. And it's
Hmm.
so beautiful because like you sit back and there is something so much about that sitting back because if you think about it this way, that stress and that overwhelm, then our nervous system is basically getting information that's saying like, oh, okay, we're under threat right now. We've got to survive. I can't lose my job. I got to work harder. Like I can't like I have to finish this thing, but I'm so overwhelmed. How am I going to even say anything about that? You know, like all of a sudden we're, our body starts pulling in,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, like there is something so much in our culture, like in Western society, it's like push through, you know, like work, like you're working beyond, like when you're already past a tipping point, like your body's already like, it's just in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been taught that because, like, yeah, that's been really important, but that there's other ways of um, survival that actually are, can have an experience of thriving, you know,
Mm-hmm.
where we actually feel like, oh, wait, hold on, like, oh, I can sit back in this moment, even as I'm feeling this stress, which is now you're honoring the stress of like, yeah, you're working hard. Ooh, okay, you're working hard. Sit back for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Because the working hard is going to orient to all that's not going to work out,
Mm-hmm.
all that is stressful, all that is overwhelming, all that you can't do and that you need to do more of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's an, and we are in a culture of that, but it's like, oh, wait a minute. If I
Mm-hmm.
sit back, I can create a little bit of space for myself in a relationship. And then all of a sudden, our energy becomes a little bit more efficient. That proposal you have to write that feels like it's going to just like where to start, and you're depleted of energy, that it takes you so much longer, that when you are caring for yourself, all of a sudden information's clear, you're like in the flow, you're attuned, and the time and space it takes is a lot less.
Absolutely. Because I've been in that place where you talk about push through, where you're like, efforting so much, and
Efforting. It's
it's
hard.
taking you like 3 and 4 times as long to get things done because you're just
Yeah.
so wound up. And
Yeah.
yeah, for me, the value of really saying, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm not being useful right now. I need to step away and go and do something else,
Mm-hmm.
and then come back to it with
Mm-hmm.
fresh energy,
Mm-hmm.
perspective, all that other stuff. And now I can actually maybe even enjoy doing it.
Yeah, because that's another thing that happens, right? All of a sudden we start resenting our job or the people or the work. And it's like, I used to love this, I don't love this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's that element of burnout that tells us something. Because sometimes it's like, yeah, this job, I really don't like this job. But sometimes it's hard to like really connect to what's true.
Right. Because sometimes it's just that we're not taking care of ourselves. So we feel like
Yeah.
our job is robbing us from
Yeah.
having the space when really we can make the space to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's about a prioritization.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also touch on as well about having fun, because for me,
Mm-hmm.
self
Mm-hmm.
care and having fun kind of link together. So for me, and I think I've shared with you that TikTok, although everybody thinks that, social media is probably part of the reason why we're so stressed. But for me,
Mm.
I follow so many comedians and dancers that is a break for me. Like I could go on TikTok and just laugh for like a good 10, 15 minutes. And
Yes.
that for me is kind of a shifting things up, getting a little bit of perspective. But what I
Yes.
love with what you demonstrate on your Instagram page
Uh-huh.
is the
Uh-huh.
dancing. Like I just
Yeah.
love the dancing because it's something that's so accessible to us every
Yes.
single day.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, there's something about that, about like just moving our bodies, no matter what it is, whether it's even watching others move their bodies, like that's really, really supports us to connect to just the vessel that holds our experiences. And so fun is something that really has like a freeing sense to it, right? But like when we're in that stress and overwhelm, that can really feel hard to connect to. Our body gets tight, there's a tightening.
Mhm.
There can almost be like a relationship to like, well, I don't have time for fun.
Right.
You
And how can
know,
you not
like
have
I gotta
fun
finish this
sometimes?
thing before I have some fun. I
Right.
gotta, or I'm so burnt out that like I can't go and do that thing right now.
Yeah.
And so even as you are shaping your relationship with social media, like that's something really beautiful to notice, because it's like, what are we orienting to that feels nourishing?
Hmm.
Are we orienting to the news? Are we orienting to things that are like, that don't feel good? And so that's a part of self care, is getting to notice what feels good and what doesn't. And
Yeah.
so if you're starting to shape like, oh, comedians, dancing, and then you can start like filtering that, that in itself is an act of self care. Because, and then there's a difference, right? Because we can check out, but how much are we checking out where we're not taking in the experience that feels good?
Yes.
You know, so like there's this thing where we can binge watch a series, and we all do it. And it's actually like really important because like sometimes we need to check out.
Yes.
But check out just enough that we can still feel present with taking in the enjoyment, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Because I think, because self-care, I think also kind of has a bit of a connotation, and it is good, like things like meditation and things that are more chill and mellow. But for me, self-care, like fun, is something that has to happen like every day. So whether it is looking at TikTok and looking at that, or a favorite show that I watch, or like your example, putting on your favorite playlist and just dancing in your living room.
Just
like
dancing. Yes. And for me, that's a thing that like, it's like, so this is where, and this is what's so cool about self-care, because this is what is truly the essence of it, is that you're building a relationship with you. You're building a relationship with yourself. And you're also, in the act of self-care, we're really meeting what's being unmet within ourselves. And so it takes time to build that relationship and to figure that out. Self-care is going to be unique. Your rituals and what nourishes you is going to be unique to you. And so there's something about that in getting to be in relationship with it. That it's not this thing that's like, here are all these things that you do that can have a very much, and like, you know, there's a lot of conversation around, well, self-care isn't accessible for everyone. And that is a statement that's quite true, because we don't all have or have had the opportunity to even build a relationship of what feels good. And so really, it's supporting ourselves to get to know what that might look like. And sometimes it starts with like what's not being met, where it's like, I used to have a lot of fun, but I don't have fun anymore. I wish I had fun. Ooh, okay, that's the self-care relationship starting. And then it takes practice, because then all of a sudden, as you build this relationship, you get into a flow, and then you find your ritual that you just do without even thinking. You're embodying it. You know? So like for instance, like I journal every morning. That was not something I did. And it took me a while for it to just become a thing where it's like I have to have breakfast. Like I have to journal. If I don't, I really notice the impact. But it took me a while to build a relationship to why that I even needed that. I didn't really understand it until I started building a relationship with myself and what that was. And then now I can bring it in. And that's what's really beautiful. It's not like, you know, there's these things like self-care plans, like make sure you have a self-care plan, which is great, sure. But it's rigid in itself. Like for me, it's like if I have to have a plan, I'm
sounds like work.
The pressure, it sounds like work, right? That instead it's like there's this beautiful organicity that can start happening, and that it actually can be fun. And then though, when you're dancing or when you're having fun, you can call on that experience when you're in this really, really, really hard meeting that's happening, where you're feeling stress. And then that fun's like, okay, yeah, I need to sit up a little bit more. I need to just like sit back for a minute. Or actually, I'm going to pick up my glass of water right now while he's talking, because okay, I'm feeling that. So like all of a sudden that fun is going to support a slowing down that's supporting that bite-sized act of self-care.
Yes. And although this is not about speeding up, but what I can say is when I am in that kind of, I've had my opportunity to have my bite-sized bit of fun and I'm able to chill, I do actually speed up, and it's not, but it's a different kind of speeding up. It's not actually about doing things faster.
No.
It's about all of a sudden ideas popping. Oh, well, I could do this, or maybe we could, or also, why are we doing this anyways? I don't think we should do this at all.
Yes, there's an opening up that happens, and your energy becomes clear and efficient.
Yeah.
So it's going to feel like a speed up, but it's because everything's in flow. You're in flow. When we're stressed, we are not in flow. It's just like everything feels hard and efforting and stuck, and and we get in our heads, you know.
And that's the stress. That's the overwhelm. That's the burnout.
The judgment. All of that. Not good enough. not working hard enough,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
So I hope that people at minimum just take away that self-care is everything from going on a 7-day meditation retreat to turning on music in your living room one evening and just dancing and getting lost in a flower that's sitting on your desk. Like there's such a broad range of it that you
There's
can
such a broad
access
range.
depending on your circumstance, right? Deep breathing
Yeah,
even in the middle of the meeting.
yeah.
So what I wanted to do, because you have tons of resources on your website, so I just
Mhm.
wanted, if you wanted to share like your website address for anybody who wanted to find out more information,
Yeah,
but all the tools and strategies and resources that you have, or also if they wanted to reach out to you for some support as well.
yeah. So my website is thegroundedheart.com. And actually I just well, I guess I was in flow last night that I'm doing next Friday, I'll be running a free masterclass on redefining self-care. So basically what we're talking about here today, but just some offers of creative and somatic resources, like body resources that can support us to
So those,
continue to embody like that fun or embody that flower,
mhm.
like beyond like be the flower, right?
So those, any of your events and workshops and whatever are all available through your website, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thegroundedheart.com.
Thegroundedheart.com.
And then
Yeah.
also your handle on Instagram, is it Jacquie Compton?
It's Jacquie Compton. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I'll also put it in the notes. So anybody who wants to
Cool.
look it up afterwards. And then I just want to remind people that this is a lovely book. So the, a body of wisdom, which is it's a collection of Jackie's poetry. And it's just so deep. It's about connecting to your body, to your emotions. So this is such a great read. And this could be your self-care activity in terms of reading a couple of
Yeah.
poems. I love it.
Yeah. Cool.
So
Thank you. Oh,
so thank you so much for joining me today, Jacquie. I think this was some really good information and also just sharing with people how accessible self-care can be and the fact that it
yeah.
doesn't need to be that other big to-do list, that thing that
Yeah.
you have to do, but as opposed to being that thing that takes away some of your stress and opens up our mind so that we can be a little bit freer
Mhm.
and life can
Mhm.
feel a little bit more fulfilling, that we're not just, in a grind all the time.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
thank you so much. And like I said, I love following Jacquie on Instagram because she demonstrates so many activities in terms of getting into your body, getting in touch with yourself, and also finding those ways to take care of ourselves, self-care. So thank you so much, Jacquie.
wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoyed that interview, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, My Lemonade Stand. You can also stream it off of your favorite podcast streaming platform. Looking forward to seeing you next time.